What's up, guys? It's the latest edition of the DC Defender Show on United Football Media. Guess who's back? He's back again after all of his traveling. Took a week off, fought sickness. He's back. Alex, how's it going, man?
It's going great, Webb. You know what? Hit the music.
It's been a couple weeks since we got to do this together. I interviewed Bellamy last week and did the schedule. You were a little bit underneath the weather. You're back. You're better than ever. Big news. Obviously, we had to have big news. Your first episode back after a couple weeks off. QB1 is in the house. Your take on JT coming back?
QB1's in the house. And I think, we alluded to it a couple of times on the show that this was probably going to happen without just coming right out and saying it. But glad he's back. I think that when you look at the pickups in the quarterback room with Francois and with McClendon, we're pretty deep. And now you bring back your QB1. All three of these guys fit in Fred Keis's system very well. So that's exciting. But Teamo, he did a lot of wonderful things last year in that offense. And, again, if you think about it, that was year one for these guys together. And now he's coming back for year two. So I think this definitely puts DC in a position where I think we're the team to beat of the XFL teams. I'll just put it right out there and say it. We're the best of the XFL bunch. And with Teamo back, that just solidifies it in my book.
Yeah, I think that the defense is the best in the league, both sides, USFL and XFL side. And then you add the offensive player of the year to the mix. Without that number one quarterback, I was still looking at this team as like 7-3, 6-4, 8-2, somewhere in that range. Now I'm talking 9-1, 10-0. As long as they stay healthy. They are, I know it's bulletin board material, but we're not part of the team. Oh, it doesn't matter what we say. But looking at this roster, I just feel like it is so deep. Like you just added the number one quarterback of the XFL last year because he was the offensive player of the year to a quarterback room like with McClendon, who I thought was a perfect fit for not just the De'Ara King role, but also maybe like a Jordan Teamo role if Teamo didn't come back. And then you add a Francois, which is a high ceiling guy, as your third string right now, going into camp. Obviously, things can change. And they all fit the system, the Fred Keis system. Like, I don't understand. And you got Abram Smith coming back. You got all those wide receivers come back. And then we're not even going defensively. Offensive line is back. The tight ends are all kind of big play. Like, find me a place where we may need some help because I can't really find any. Obviously, you always take talented guys, right? You want a competitive camp. But if you're saying what's the weakest spot of the defenders, I don't know if Vaughn and Reggie have knocked us out of the park, this merger. So
there are no holes in, on the offensive side and the defensive side. When you look and you say, where's the glaring gap? There isn't one. And I went back actually after you and I had talked and looked at some film on McClendon last year with the Vipers. And that guy's got a rocket. I mean, he absolutely has a gun for an arm. You could probably argue he's probably a better passer than De'Ara King was as far as, really being able to zip the ball. So, I mean, again, when I look at that quarterback room, I think you got three guys that you could plug in and get, solid performance out of. We know what Teamo can do, but I think with McClendon and Francois, I mean, you've got two guys behind him that sky's the limit for both of those guys. To your point, when you look at the depth on the offensive line, you could make an argument that maybe we with Jackson and Blair gone, maybe we're not as good at receiver, but I think we put some nice pieces in there to sort of fill in for their, absence or promotions rather. There are no gaps. I'm ready to get started.
You talk about the receiver room, and you got to talk about Preston Williams, right? Out of Colorado State. He's dynamic. And then Trey Shropshire, I'm hoping I'm saying the name right, out of UAB. You want to talk about a big play guy. For 2 years, his last 2 years in college, he was in the top 5 for yards per catch at UAB in the entire country. So he's a big play guy. You got Brandon Smith coming back. Hammond, Rolland. But like, I don't know where they make the cut. That's the thing. That's the toughest thing going into camp is where are you cutting off this roster? We'll dive
Which is a
into it
good
as we get
problem to
closer.
have.
It's a great problem to have. But so let's grade this Tiama move. A, obviously being great. F, being terrible. Give me a grade.
Obvious, it's an A. I mean, again, returning player of the year, 9-1, got us in the championship game last year. Knows Fred Keiss's offense. He's perfect in this offense. Great team leader. That's the one thing that, like, sort of from the outside looking in, I didn't realize. But we've gotten closer to this team, and as we've talked to some of the guys, they've all expressed that he brings that leadership to the locker room. He's that glue. And we saw it with the Maulers. You don't replace guys like that, you know? So what he can bring to the field is obvious. The stats speak for themselves. His performance speaks for himself. But what he brings off the field into the locker room and those intangibles, you could even argue they may be harder to replace. So I think getting him back is an A+ move. I think it brings the continuity, the confidence back to this offense. And tee it up. Let's go.
Tee it up. So right now it's 74 out of 75 are signed, claimed. So they really do have one move. Not signed. I'm sorry. 74 are on the roster. Not 100% of them are signed. You got guys like Alex Ellis, Bradley Moore, McKinney, DeMarcus Hayes, Kyle Murphy, George Moore, Devin Bellamy. They all have to re-sign. Fidel Brown, I don't believe I've seen re-sign. So that has to get done before the 14th.
Mm-hmm.
That's the tricky to bring in 75 guys. You have to have that full roster and re-sign by then. So Vaughn and Reggie have some work to do, obviously.
Right.
And I'm not even 100% sure if Trent Harris is signed technically. So those are the moves before our next episode that we should see are just guys resigning, and it could be happening right now because UFL Communications drops at 6 p.m. every night, even when they don't have moves. This is the greatest thing. Like coming over from the USFL, right? We used to watch moves, and like they would put on Twitter at like midnight Eastern time,
Right?
And it's like, man, no one could talk about this. No one can get this momentum going. This UFL Communications is knocking it out of the park because they're dropping it at 6 p.m. And when they don't have moves, they're going, "Hey guys, guess what? We have no moves."
No moves.
So,
yeah.
It's
I like it.
It's a different feel. Yeah. It's a professional football, and like Bellamy said, we're trying to be a professional football here, the best of the best, not just a developmental league. So,
and I'd encourage people to, Webb, real quick. Yeah. If you didn't see the Davin Bellamy interview, guys, go do yourself a favor and go back and take a look at it. That was it was outstanding having him. I was sorry that I was under the weather and missed that one because he was a joy to have on the show, and it was a really good interview with Webb. So if you didn't see that show, go back and take a look at it from last week. It's definitely worth the 35 or 40 minutes. It was a good watch.
I think I told you offline. My favorite part was when he talked about his book that he's developing.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Like it's not just about X's and O's, right? And come to find out, I actually worked with one of his teammates from that Rose Bowl game. I didn't know that they were teammates.
Oh wow!
I thought Bellamy was a little bit older than the guy that I work with, and he was actually telling me some off-air Davin Bellamy in the locker room being a leader stories that kind of match everything you hear out in the press and on Twitter and everything about him being a leader. And he told me a few stories about the Stay Humble. I don't know if you know about the Stay Humble with Davin and Baker Mayfield. And it was actually rather entertaining, and it matched exactly what Davin said. So it tells me that Davin spoke the truth the entire episode. So
yeah, he was good. He was a great interview. We'll have him back, and I won't be sick.
Definitely. All right, you ready for the question of the week?
Question of the week.
All right, question of the week. You weren't here last week. So I went through the schedule game by game. I didn't really dive into it. The question of the week is, if I had to pick 1 out of 10 games to go see, home or away, which is the game that you're going to go see?
Oh, well, I know 2 of them I'm going to go see.
Not considering your schedule. Don't be like, well, I got to take the daughter here. The wife wants this. Don't take that into consideration. Look at just the schedule and be like, that's the game of the year for the
I know
defenders.
the one personally I want just coming over from the USFL, and I'd love to be at that DC at Birmingham game in week 4. That's the one
Week
I'd
5.
want because I'll be honest with you. I love Chris Blewett. You know, I love Chris Blewett, and I hope he doesn't miss a field goal this year for Birmingham, but I absolutely hate Birmingham. I can't stand them. I don't like anything about them. I don't. Skip Holtz is a good guy. But I'm so sick of their fans. The whole 9 yards, and I still think they got lucky. They had a horseshoe shove so far up. You know what? Against the Maulers back in July, I'm sick of them, and I'd absolutely love nothing more than to be there at 4th week of the year when Washington just stomps the absolute crap out of them on their home field. So that's how
Sounds
I feel
good,
about
man.
that one. So, well, it's true. That's how I feel about. I'm sick of them. I'm tired of them. And then the other one is probably one I might actually get to, which would be the last game of the year with Arlington and DC. I think that's probably going to be playing. It's going to mean something, just like it did last year. That game will mean something. And for me, that's going to be nice to get another shot at those guys after what happened in the title game.
Yeah, I think one of the games to watch is week 1 because it's definitely the Houston Roughnecks of the XFL mixed in with the Brahmas. Going against the defenders, and it's away, and it's in the Alamo Dome where the championship is played. It's a tone setter. If they come out swinging and where they're in that location, in that same city, new league, I think it's a tone setter. Obviously, week 4 is absolutely huge coming over from the USFL side. I cannot stand the ponies. Everybody knows this. I argue with pony fans all the time. They think their quarterback room is set, and I'm telling you right now, it's not set. Like Jamar's had a year off. Morton hasn't played since college, and Adrian Martinez is a rookie, and that's not a question mark to you. Like that's a question mark. I'm sorry. Is the team good? Are they very good? Yes. Is Skip Holtz a great coach? Yes.
Yes.
Are they the 2-time champs? And if you watch Brahma bullpen, he's 100% right. They're the 2-time champs of the USFL, which is now a division championship. It is not a league championship. You are not the 2-time champions of the UFL, just like the Renegades are not the defending champions. They're putting these the conference champions or whatever division champions, whatever we're going to call it, to play against each other in week 1, but they're not the UFL champions. So this is a completely different league.
Well, don't tell the pony fans that. They think they're Lombardi's Packers.
Well, they're crying that the championship isn't in Birmingham, or they're crying that the hub's not in Birmingham for the USFL. Like all they do is cry. That's all they do. Like all I said was this week I said that their quarterback room is not settled. Like I can't tell who number 1 is. I know Jamar's got the history with Holtz and probably is the leading candidate, but Alex Magoo is not walking through that door right now.
And he was the difference maker last year. How many times did Magoo make plays to bail him out? Exactly. Even in the championship game when he's scrambling around and throwing the ball behind his head and behind his back and guys are making miraculous catches, he won that game. That we had him a couple times dead to right and he would go out and make a big play. And I think Jamar is I like Jamar. I think he's a good guy, a good human being. Like you said, he's Coach Holtz's guy. But, if you had to ask me right now if I'd rather have Jamar or Magoo, I'm going to take Magoo. So I think when you look at it, our quarterback situation is the same. If anything, it's better with what we've added in the quarterback room with Tiamu. I don't think Birmingham can say the same. You don't lose a guy like Alex Magoo without taking a step back.
Yeah, I think McClendon is an upgrade over Derek King. I think you said that he's got a bigger arm. Derek King might be a better runner, pure runner, but McClendon's a better thrower, better passer. And I look for, and then you add guys like Trent Harris, like you have the 2 highest sack total guys on the edges, right? And then you bring other guys off the edge, out of the wards and the backups, right? The rotation guys, but you have like probably the 2 best pass rushers on the edge, with Bellamy and Harris, and then you have those tackles, defensive tackle like TJ Barnes of the champions, Boogie, right? Joe Wallace. Like there's so much depth on that front 7. I don't see how people could. And then we're not even talking about the secondary. We'll go into that in a little bit when we talk about the defense, but like it's just different. And Pony fans, I know you won the USFL. Congratulations. You had a hell of a 2 years. but this is a different league.
Different league.
You're not playing 6 home games.
Nope.
You're not based out of going to the same restaurants that you've been going the last 2 years, or sleeping in the same building or anything like that. It's a completely different league. And the championship's not even going to end up in Canton, from the rumor from RJ Young. It's going to end up in St. Louis.
Yeah.
So you're not even ending up in Canton. Did you have a hell of a 2 years? You went 21-3. Congratulations, man. You won 2 rings. You deserve it. I was there on the championship. You were there on the championship. They deserve it. But Pony fans need to get off their high horse. See what I did there?
That was good.
That's
why you're the host.
Need to move on. Yeah. Another game. Obviously, the 2 Battlehawk games I would circle on the calendar. But if I had to choose another USFL game, the Showboats game. I think the Showboats game, because it's late in the season, it means a lot. Both teams are probably going to be fighting, if they're not leading their divisions, for the same spot. And I think Memphis, by that time, exactly what Memphis is. And I think they're a USFL All-Star team out of the 4 teams that collapsed. They were probably the most celebrated star team. So that would be an interesting game. But
they improved the most, I think, through Super Draft and whatnot. They definitely took a step forward, and I agree with you. I think they're completely, especially at the quarterback position. I think that's a real difference for Memphis. And then if you look at our schedule, with 3 of the first 4 on the road, and I say this because Arlington, we're playing in Arlington. We'll be in Arlington anyway. I mean, technically it's still a road game, but if you can get off to a great start in those first 4 weeks with 3 road games, then the schedule starts to balance up in the middle. We have 3 straight weeks at home. The key is going to be, and you touched on it, getting out of the gate quick in San Antonio, coming back the next week home against the Roughnecks. Then you have Arlington and Birmingham. Those first 4 games could really tell the story. You could dig yourself a hole that you're fighting out of all year to get out. You could get off to a wonderful start, which I think they will. And then you're kind of in the driver's seat when you look at how the back half of the schedule is loaded toward more home games for DC. And we know there's a home field advantage and Audi field for the defenders. So those first 4 weeks are critical.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so we're going into talk about this roster a little bit more, go into detail as camp is rapidly approaching. I can't believe we're filming this on the 10th of February. Let's go through the defense. Let's start with the D tackles. Yep. I'll announce them all.
Yep.
And then you give me your take, really.
Got it.
All right.
Yep.
All right. TJ Barnes out of Georgia Tech, Fadol Brown, Ole Miss, and this is no particular order. Joe Wallace out of Sam Houston State. He was with the team last year. Boogie Roberts from the Maulers via the Brahmas out of San Jose State. Niles Scott from Frostburg State. Played a bunch in the NFL. Donovan Jeter out of Michigan. He's making his UFL debut. There's so many of them. Carcarius Tisdale from Ole Miss, SEC body there. Grand Valley State's Dennis Johnson is also there from, he signed a letter of intent, and that's the D tackles. Give me your take on the D tackle. We won't even talk about edge right now.
Yeah, loaded. I like, obviously TJ brings a lot of experience. TJ Barnes, interested in Donovan Jeter as well. Big time player out of Michigan. When you look at Boogie, we know what we were getting with Boogie from the Maulers. I mean, there's a guy inside that's disruptive. Reminds me a lot of Joe Wallace, who had a fantastic year for DC last year. And I called it out on our first show. Joe's my guy up front. But I mean, we've got some big, athletic, disruptive people on that defensive front. And you touched on it before. They're really going to reap the benefit of the wonderful edge rushing threat that we have with that push in the middle. These guys are all poised, I think, to have a really big year for us. And they each bring different skill sets into the locker room too. And then you take a guy like TJ Barnes. He's a veteran. He is a proven veteran. A great addition to the team. Has retired and come back. So, that tells me he's still hungry. He wants to play football. Coming from the championship Arlington Renegades last year, right? So it's definitely a strong room. A lot of good talent, for sure up front.
Yeah, TJ Barnes is a man of the people. That's one thing I will say about this room. It seems like a lot of hardworking guys.
Yep.
Kind of underrated. We're undrafted, got a short stint in the NFL.
Mhm.
Boogie obviously is our guy from the Maulers.
Yep.
A great locker room guy. Joe Wallace seems to be a bigger version of Boogie. I want to say he's bigger than Boogie.
Mhm.
But these guys in this defense, it's get after the quarterback. Donovan Jeter could be the most talented one out of this bunch if
Yep.
he puts it all together. Tarkarius, I watched his film, but I obviously did not take the lexicon or the I phonetically. Tisdale is an athletic freak. We talked about it when we drafted him a couple weeks ago. You could just tell that he's not 350 pounds, but he's super athletic from the D tackle position. I want to say it's for the ball fans that are falling over. It's like Beckner, right? Or Will Miles, really athletic, and they can play the D tackle. Interesting to see how this room goes, because you got to probably make one or two cuts here.
You got more guys in spots. That's the thing, which again is a good problem.
You got 8 guys.
I know.
You got 8 guys. You can't carry. Like, I think 6 would be the max, right?
Probably.
Yeah.
You'd think.
So 2 unfortunately have to go, and Fidel Brown and Joe Wallace and Niles Scott are the returning. Everyone else is new. So
right. No,
all right, moving on to edge. This is another one. This is another one that's so deep. Trent Harris, led to the XFL in sacks last year. Tim Ward, the guy that was on the other side that was commanding respect, where Trent Harris was able to get a lot of one-on-ones. Gavin Bellamy, come on. Andre Mintz, Malik Fisher, and Derek Roberson. Your takes on our edge guys.
We probably would have been okay with the guys we brought back from last year, right? With Mintz and Bellamy and the guys that we had. And then you go out and you get a Trent Harris and you pick him up. The additions that we added, Malik Fisher. These guys were loaded to begin with. And now you look at what you went and you picked up, you just got even better. So again, you touched on it, like with Barlow and Vaughn, we literally got better at every position. It feels like we got better talent at every position on the offensive side of the ball, on the defensive side of the ball, right? They sort of recruited and met and filled the gaps that they had, but we are very deep. And like when I look at even those names you called out from an edge standpoint, not all of the guys may stay there either. So it's like, who are you going to get rid of? And it's like the level of competition for spots is going to be incredible on this team.
Yeah, because you got to go from 75 to what, 45?
Yeah.
I think it's 45.
45 or 42?
Well, it might be 42. You've got to cut nearly 30 guys.
Right?
That's you've got to cut 30 guys, and that's absolutely insane when you're looking at the talent, especially like going through these 2 positions. It's so deep, and we're not even at the best position yet for this team, in my opinion.
Tell me about it.
Yeah. Moving on to linebacker. This one should be interesting as well. You got Jordan Evans, Reggie Northrup, the UFC legend, Reggie Northrup. He is, I don't know if you remember him from USFL season 1. He had the cigarette flopping out of his mouth while he was practicing and everything. He's just a guy. He's a culture guy.
Badass. Yep.
Yeah. Francis Bernard, Sinogo, Anthony Hines, Farad Gardner. Obviously Jordan Evans comes over from Seattle.
Yep.
Or he was in Houston, right? No, Seattle.
He's an ex Cincinnati Bengal too. Like, he's been in the NFL. I mean, these are NFL quality players that are going to be fighting for position spots.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. So do you consider some of those edge guys maybe linebackers?
I do.
Because obviously this one has what, 6 guys?
Yeah.
So you got 12 guys between the edge and the linebacker spot. Yeah. There's definitely I would say 4 cuts out of those 2 groups. I don't know if
Probably,
it's more edge or more linebackers, but I think there's 4 cuts out of those 2 groups.
probably so. Yeah, I like Northrup. I like Bernard, obviously. Big year last year. Like you said, you got Hines, you got Evans, and then you got the edge guys. And I think some of those guys are probably interchangeable and can play inside too. But to your point, of that core of like 12, you're probably going to keep how many? 8,
Yeah.
10, 8 probably. And then 6 up front. That's 14. Doesn't take long. Doesn't take long to get to 42 or 45 or whatever that magic number is. Can get there pretty quickly. And then when you look at the defensive backs, good Lord. I mean, there's NFL, ex-NFL guys there, returning starters there. There's a ton of talent back there. Loaded.
Let's go through them. Corners.
Joseph
Conley.
and Neal. Yep.
Oh.
No, sorry. I was just going to say from last year, Joseph and Neal are back. Go ahead. You said Conley.
Well, Conley, former first-round draft pick, right?
Yep.
DeAndre Baker, another first-round draft pick. The Michael Joseph, DeJuan Neal, Adam Sparks. We used an early draft pick in the dispersal round, the divisional round, where we drafted him, or we picked him up. And Thua Kelly comes back, Elijah Blades, Isaiah Johnson, who still has not signed, and Nadir Rouse, who was solid last year.
Right. Kendrell Bryce, Santos Ramirez. They're 2 more. Don't forget. I mean, Ramirez put up really good numbers last year. Swearinger.
Those are considered safeties. Deontay Anderson, Monte Nicholson.
I was looking at
the point is, obviously, on this defense, it's get to the quarterback and cover, and there's a lot of man sometimes. So you need dudes. Like it's not just a zone. Like it's a lot of one-on-one sometimes. These safeties need to be able to cover as well. So
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. One of the other things too that I went back and looked, and I'm sorry, I did transition on you. I was looking at you were talking corners, and I just shifted to the whole defensive backs real quick.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
I went back and looked at some film on Ramirez, and that guy's a football player. Santos Ramirez is a football player. He comes up, he sticks, he makes tackles. He's tough. Like the more I watch him, and maybe it just kind of had slipped out of my mind from last year, I really like him. I think he's going to be another big time contributing season this season. And the same can be said for Kendrell Bryce. I watched a couple games while I was down and out, and paid particular attention to the defense. And some of these guys I'm looking that we brought back, and I'm like, holy cow, they're good football players. They are really solid on defense. And then, like you said, when you look at what we added, there are going to be some tough decisions to be made in that room too. There are going to be some guys that probably could make it or should make it that we might just run out of spots.
Well, like the thing about it is, you added Deontay Anderson, right? He's all XFL last year for Vegas, playing for Rod Woodson, right? A Hall of Fame defensive back. Yeah. Like then DeAndre Baker is just all he does. Like people are just picking up their teeth all the time. Like for a cornerback, he just hits them. He depletes them all the time. Like if you look him up, he's got 3 or 4 hits out there. You're like, that's a D-back. Like it looks like a linebacker catching someone with a hit stick. Conley, another former first-round draft pick. Like this is another room that I know every team can probably, they're dreaming about their season, and they're like, oh, we're so deep. I could think of one particular person on the United Football Media, and his team is no longer the Gamblers. That's your hint. But he just says like everything. Like, oh, we're so deep. We got all these dudes. These are legit dudes. Like the NFL, when they're drafting you in the first round, right? Like Conley and Baker, like, and you're coming from Georgia and you're coming from Ohio State, the teams in the playoffs. And maybe you might not have had a great first go around in the NFL. Maybe, some things happen, he's got one on his team, right? That came from the Maulers. He went through a tough time, and now you're going to tell me Reuben Foster ain't a dude? These are the guys, man. Like, I look at depth charts that people are coming up with and everything, and people that scouted out the team and everything, they have Michael Joseph as our third corner.
Yeah.
Do the math.
And he was
Michael Joseph
huge.
was solid. Yeah.
He was last year, huge contributor, right? Starter all year long, had a couple of pick sixes, a very, very solid player all year long. And I think the other thing to keep in mind when you look at this defense too is we have people on this defense that have had multiple years in the NFL, not, signed to training camp, was on the practice squad. We have people that have taken snaps. We've had people that have started 8, 10, 12 games during an NFL season. So that should tell you the caliber of the people that we have on our defense. Not a lot of holes, buddy. I am seriously looking forward to it.
I'm surprised you didn't mention Sam Kidd, honestly.
Okay. I call it the COVID fog. What do you want to say about it?
He went to James Madison. You always mention the Virginia kids.
Well, there you go.
Actually, I think you missed there's another one too that's out there that went to ODU, right?
No, we talked about Ward, Tim Ward. He's an ODU guy, right?
Yeah, we did talk about that before.
Yeah, I think I called him out on the first show. I couldn't miss that.
But Sam Kidd, that's another guy. Hardworking safety. He's got an uphill climb because of how deep the defensive backfield is. And the way that this league is shaping up, that you got to be NFL ready now. There is no developmental. There is working on some things, but you need to be close to a practice squad player now, especially to be on this team.
Yep. But, like Bellamy said, Davin Bellamy, when you had him on, this is pro league. This is professional football, guys. When you guys go out and you pay your ticket to go to Audi Field to watch, you're watching professional football players. And the quality of football in this league is only going to continue to get better. Right. And I think, it's evident for as much as we hated the sort of contraction of the USFL teams and the guys that may be out of a job. And we talked to a lot of them, and it is sad and unfortunate, but with the pool of players being bigger, the talent level is naturally going to rise. And when we go through and we break down and we look at this roster and we start thinking about guys, that potentially we might not be able to keep, that they could plug in and play someplace else today, I think that really speaks to the level of talent in the league and how it's going to grow. And it's just going to continue to grow. It's just going to continue to grow, in my opinion. So I don't know where I was going with that, other than I think our talent is a whole heck of a lot better now than it probably was. And the XFL folks would probably even say last year coming into the season compared to this season, the defenders have a lot more talent. There's more talent across the board on all these teams. It's going to be very competitive this year.
You've got 5 guys that were drafted in the NFL in the defensive back room. 5.
Right. Well, not only drafted, but played. Like a lot of these guys played like multiple seasons in the NFL. Sorry.
Yeah. No, you're 100% right. There is a difference between teams in this league, and no one wants to face the fact. Is this league super talented? Yes, because you went from 16 to 8. But this is a different level. Like this is absolutely a different level of, especially on the defensive side of the ball. You could tell me all the awards of the all USFL and the all XFL. That's fine and great, but look at the NFL giving the nod to these players, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then add that they were all USFL and XFL. And if you could put all that together, you're a step above something that just is an all USFL, XFL player. Does that make sense? So you went to a big time school. That means you're big time recruiting in college, right? And most of these guys did. I don't know if I'd call James Madison and ODU a big time school yet. No, just kidding. Sorry. Alex is a Virginia guy. Except the Cavs, right? They know the UVA, right?
Disclaimer, I have nothing against we have UVA people watching the show. I have nothing against the Cavaliers. Nothing.
But he grew up a Hokie fan. But
that's true.
Conley, Baker, Joseph, Swearinger, and we didn't even talk about it. Isaiah Johnson was a 4th round draft pick. And I'm looking at a depth chart right now that some guy made, right? And he's 8th out of the 9th in the corners. Some guy that watches film, he's 8th out of the 9 corners. He was in the NFL as late as 2019. and then he had a stint in the CFL in 2021.
Wow.
But he was with us last year. But he's ranked as the 8th best corner in this. I'm telling you, this is different, and this is we obviously came from the Mahler side where we were kind of like the underdog, the 1-9 team. Change the colors, different head coach. We're recovering from pizza. This one, we're sitting on the top, man.
We're sitting on the top.
We're sitting on the top, and we just got to protect our throne, really.
Yep.
Yes, I know they lost in the championship. I get it. I 100% get it. People are like, well, whatever. Guess what? There's not another team in the league that went 9-1 in either side, right?
Mm-mm.
Even if you add the championship loss, they have the same record as the Stallions last year. When you add it, they might not have ended their season the same way, but they had the same record, same amount of disappointments, same amount of successes. Maybe they're just timed a little differently, and they're bringing everyone back and adding the XFL sack leader, the XFL all safety, and Deontay Anderson, Boogie Roberts, which some would say should have been all USFL, to a team that just was dominant, and you didn't lose anyone. You lost Lucky. I will say you lost Lucky, but you're bringing back all those Abram Smith, right? He didn't just run away. Like, he wasn't just the best running back. He ran away with the rushing title.
Yep.
And then don't sleep on, and then I'll kind of wrap this up. Darius Higgins. That's a Virginia State guy. Don't sleep on him.
Yep.
Why? Who do you play for?
Virginia State.
Virginia State. Yeah.
Reggie Barlow.
He played for Reggie Barlow.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So there's some kind of tie there.
There you go.
I really think he's going to slide right in there. And Cameron Harris obviously was a beast last year, but we go on and on.
We can. There's a lot of talent in those HBCU programs, and it may get overlooked. And that's another thing I like about Coach Barlow and Coach Keiss. They have a pulse and they have a network there. And don't think that they aren't working that network and that there aren't guys that they have their eyes on or they're getting tips from some of their old coaching buddies, because, when they're out there having success in the UFL, they're really representing a lot of these HBCU programs. And I can tell you those coaches and players get a real kick out of seeing their success. So if there's some talent out there that they can send their way or tip them off on, that's going on. So that's a good call on Higgins.
Yeah, I just, the fact that he played for Reggie Barlow, right?
Yep.
Like, he has to have, and Reggie being a offensive guy.
Yep.
Barlow could have drafted anyone from Virginia State during his tenure, right? A lot of them are probably available right now.
Yep.
But he went out and got Higgins without missing a beat, and they're just throne hunters, right? They're just hunting for the next throne, and they got to finish the job. I will say that. That is the biggest challenge going into the season, is that they have to finish the job. You have the most talented, most talent. You added a ton of talent. You have everyone coming back. Now it's time to finish the job, and I think maybe that will be the slogan.
Finish.
I know I've read a revenge tour everywhere, but I think
finish
or defend DC. Defend DC is my favorite, because I'm a defensive guy. So
for me, it's about finish. It's about, they were close last year, and even though the league is a new league, kind of like we were telling the Pony fans, it's the UFL now. It's a new league, but last year, and it was last year, but last year the Defenders whacked St. Louis at home and then went out there to the Dome and zipped them all up and sent them home. You can't tell me that's not we're going to be the hunted this year, because we were 9-1. And even though it is a new league, people are still looking at, there's the team that went to the championship. St. Louis people, when they're done staring at the arch, they're going to come back and they're going to think, that's the team that kicked us twice, right? That's the team that sent us home. We were watching the playoffs last year on TV, which kind of scares me, because they're probably going to be sitting home watching the playoffs again this year. But I still hope they'll buy a ticket and come over to the Dome and watch DC play.
Well, here's my thing. McCarron was on that podcast that I shall not name, the national one. I will not name it. And he said that he would make a decision in a couple days, right? That was 9 days ago, 10 days ago.
Yeah.
A couple days, he said a day or two, actually, I think verbatim. He's not walking through that door right now. They're Max Borghi's not. He just retired.
Yeah.
Like I know Anthony Beck runs a great program. I know
He's a good guy.
He's a good guy. I respect that side.
Yep,
right?
me too.
It's not like the pony fans. Like I could deal with Battlehawk fans. They are annoying, sure, but they're not. They don't come across entitled.
Caw is stupid. Whoever came up with that is a moron. I'm sorry, but there's nothing intimidating about caw. It's dumb. It annoyed me. The first time I ever heard it, it sounds like somebody's having like some kind of spasm in their belt. They ate something that wasn't good. It's dumb. It's like, come on, guys. Come up with something different. Come up with something tough. Caw. Like it sounds like you have something's wrong with you. Seriously, I hate it. I don't like anything about him. Anthony Beck is okay. I don't like anything else about him. And the turf at the Dome stinks. And they need to get some lights in there so you can see, so you can catch a punt. It's too dark.
I had to throw that on. You just went on a rant and you were about to kill him. And I was like, you know what? It's going to be the history. It's the history because he's about to tell me what happened with the Rams on that turf. So
what? You're throwing history with me on the Rams. Nobody watched the Rams. The only time they ever watched the Rams is when they had that quarterback that used to bag groceries. And that's it.
Fair enough. I will tip my hat to the Battlehawk fans because when they still talk about Stan Kroenke, I respect that. Like I just respect that. Like they're upset that Kroenke took out the Rams, and DC does the same thing for Dan Snyder. So it's like a brotherhood. So even though Dan Snyder's gone, I hope that DC still brings that heat for Mr. Snyder.
Get on YouTube, Webb. This is between now and the next show, and for anybody listening to this show, you want to get fired up for football season next year. There's a 3-hour documentary about the history of the Washington Redskins. And while I was down and out, I was looking for stuff to watch. And I watched all 3 hours of it. And Washington's hungry for a winner. We gave them a winner last year with the Defenders. But, I mean, Washington is a great football town with great football tradition. They've had so many characters come through Washington, right? And I think the Defenders right now, with everything that's gone on with Snyder and the Redskins, we're positioned to capture that fan base and to recapture that magic. I really do believe that. But if you haven't watched it, do yourself a favor, carve out 3 hours of your life and watch the history of the Washington Redskins on YouTube. It's a great watch.
Man, that video did come in time. We didn't even plan that video, and you just knocked it out of the park. The history with Alex. that will be a somewhat normal segment. I'll just randomly throw it at Alex, and you guys will see the encyclopedia known as Alex.
To zip me up. Now, in fairness to Jim, in fairness to St. Louis fans, I did like the St. Louis Cardinals. I liked Jim Hart when he was quarterback, and I thought he was fantastic. Mercury Morris was a running back in the late 70s. So I did like the Cardinals when they were there. And St. Louis has gotten a bad rap with the Cardinals leaving and the Rams leaving. And like I said, I think it's wonderful. Their fans are wonderful, and the way they support their team is wonderful. But like when they started with that caw junk, I was just like, nope, I don't play that cute stuff. I'm not into that. So it's like, nope, no, thank you. It's dumb, and I hate it. I'll pull for anybody but. Except maybe Birmingham. Maybe I'd pull for St. Louis. Could they both lose? If Birmingham and St. Louis play, maybe it's just a really rough physical game and nothing. We
haven't gotten the full. We haven't gotten the full rule book out yet. So
yeah,
maybe there's a possibility that both teams can lose.
Nothing tie would be nice. Within the rain, there's a hole in the dome. Just let it rain all game long. Nothing.
Well, I think like the 7th tiebreaker is like point differential, so they have to lose points too.
Okay,
like they would have to like lose 100 points in the point differential too. Like for me to be on board where both teams lose,
right?
They have to lose more than just a loss. Like they have to lose point differential. So whatever their positive point differential is, they have to go negative. That same exact thing.
You are so smart. I have a hard time following. You're just at a different level, Webb. That's like Ivy League stuff right there.
There's no Ivy League down here in Georgia. But anyway, we made it through another episode of the DC Defender Show. We'll get back into a groove. Super Bowl prediction real quick, since this is coming out on Super Bowl Sunday morning.
My daughter would kill me if I didn't say, go Chiefs.
All right, I got Chiefs 31-17. I think they kind of dominate it, and I think Mahomes is the new Brady. So,
and I think the Chiefs defense is for real. I think they've peaked at the right time. If you look at that defense in the playoffs, they've been damn tough, and I think ultimately that's going to be. I like that 17 points. I think that's a good pick on your part. So, okay. I'd say you said 31-17. I'm going to go with 28-16. Something different. How about that?
And Purdy ain't Purdy. You know what I mean?
Oh. They'll get him. That defense is tough. Defense wins championships.
Definitely. So we'll try to get back on to a routine Monday nights. We're trying to get back on. This will come out Sunday because we're recording on Saturday and we don't want to take the risk that some news will drop and will be everything we'll say doesn't mean anything. So this will come out tomorrow and then we'll go from there. But thank you. Yeah. And thank you for coming back finally. It's been a long time.
Miss you, man. It's good to be back.
I don't know. We basically have talked football every week since August, and just taking it like we took a little break for Christmas, and it was like, oh, it's Christmas. You know, you got a million things to do. But like the season's starting to heat up now, and it's like, man, I need to get back on there with Alex. So
we got to go. Yeah, we've been weekly every week since like last July, with the exception of like we took 1 week off earlier this month. And that's been it.
That's it.
So this is the place to be for Defenders content right here, guys.
Exactly. And all the UFL content is in the United Football Media YouTube channel. We've got shows for every 6 out of 8 teams. We've got polar opposites. We've got the Hispanic population that's watching the show. If you want to listen to UFL content in Spanish, we have Oscar. Oscar was a legend in the press conferences. If you look up the press conferences, all the coaches know Oscar.
Yeah.
He's joined to produce the show for United Football Media, and it is awesome.
That's wonderful. Yeah, that's great. He was actually getting called out by Coach Horton by name. And he really became a legend with the USFL coaches. So getting him to be part of the network is a big deal.
Yeah. So we're just going to grow from here, but we got a couple other possibilities coming up too, but they'll be for another day. All right, Alex, we'll do it again next week.
Let's do it again next week. And until next week, so long, everybody.
So I'm changing it up now. I'm just saying Shields up, Webb and Alex out.